She told me to stop the car. I looked her in the eyes, then drove straight to the police. I never expected what came next.
My name is Richard. I'm 63. I've been married to Janet for 34 years. Or, at least, I thought I was married. In reality, I was part of a long con, a convenient prop in my wife's double life. It started with a road trip. We were supposed to visit her cousin in Vancouver, a family reunion. Nothing big, just a few days. Me, Janet, and our 2 grown kids, now both in their 20s. We'd packed up our SUV, loaded with snacks and bags. Everything seemed normal. Janet asked me to drive. She said she was tired from packing. I didn't question it. About 2 hours from the border, she leaned forward, looked at her phone, and said, "Hey, pull into that gas station. I think we forgot something." I obliged. While I filled the tank, she popped the trunk, said she needed to rearrange some bags. What I didn't know then was that she had quietly slipped a red duffel bag into the trunk, a bag I hadn't seen before, one that didn't belong to any of us. We drove on. The kids were watching a movie in the back. Janet was unusually cheerful. I remember thinking she seemed relieved. Just before the border, she grew quiet, said she needed to make a call, and stepped out of the car. She returned minutes later, face unreadable. "We're fine," she said. But something wasn't fine. That's when I saw a message flash on her phone. She didn't mean for me to see it, but she'd left it angled just enough. A man's name, followed by, "It's done. Crossing soon. Love you." My stomach turned. I didn't react right away. I stayed calm, waited, played dumb. We were half a mile from the checkpoint when I pulled off to the side of the road. "Why are we stopping?" she asked. I looked at her. "We need to talk." At first, she played confused, then defensive. But when I walked to the trunk and pulled out that red duffel, her face dropped. Inside, multiple sealed packages, hidden beneath clothes. I didn't need a lab to tell me it wasn't anything legal. "You were going to have me drive across an international border. With this?" I asked. She said nothing. So I checked the rest of the trunk. Her bag was there. So was a second phone. I opened it. Dozens of messages with a man named Kyle. Photos, love notes, mentions of getting out soon and starting over. That's when it hit me. I wasn't supposed to find out. I was supposed to be the mule. The man who'd unknowingly get caught. She'd cry, play the widow, and then run off with Kyle with the money. I didn't scream. I didn't threaten. I closed the bag, got back in the car, and drove. But not to the border. I turned around. She kept asking questions, but I didn't answer. I just drove. Half an hour later, I pulled into a police station. I handed over the bag, the phone, everything. She was arrested. I filed for divorce the next morning. What she didn't know was that I had already backed up her entire digital trail, messages, calls, hotel bookings. I gave it all to the authorities. Kyle was picked up within 48 hours. They found more than enough in his apartment. Janet tried to spin it, claimed it was all a misunderstanding, but she forgot one thing. She trained me to be observant, to notice things. And this time, I noticed everything. But the story didn't end there. The investigation uncovered more than just the bag. It turns out Janet had been working with Kyle for nearly 2 years. He was part of a larger ring that used seemingly innocent family trips to move small shipments across borders, just enough to avoid suspicion. And Janet? She was a key player. She had recruited 2 other women, all married, all with husbands who had no idea they were being used. I had unknowingly stepped into a world I couldn't believe existed. Court proceedings began. Janet's bail was denied after more details surfaced. Her texts revealed that she planned to disappear with Kyle once I was taken care of. I replayed that line in my head. Taken care of. I sat in the courtroom the first day of the trial. She didn't look at me, but I looked at her, long and hard, and I felt nothing. No anger, no grief, just resolve. When the trial moved to Kyle, he folded fast, offered a deal in exchange for a full confession. He admitted to everything. The plan was to let me get arrested, take the fall, and allow them to walk free with the money. A new life in South America. New names, new future. My life meant nothing to them. After sentencing, I returned home. The house was quiet. Too quiet. So I started moving forward. I gave interviews anonymously to help others spot similar signs. I joined a local support group. I even started writing down everything. Not for a book, for clarity. The betrayal cut deep, but the silence after the storm gave me strength. And as I sat by the lake one morning, Max, my dog, at my feet, I finally felt something I hadn't in a long time. Peace. The day after Janet's sentencing, I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt empty. You'd think that after such a betrayal, justice would bring some kind of satisfaction. But all I could think about was the sheer depth of the lie. 34 years. And yet it took less than a year for it all to unravel. The house was quiet, eerily so. The kids were back at their places. I had taken time off work. There were no errands, no court dates, no meetings, just me and Max and the silence. That morning, I stood in the bathroom and looked at myself in the mirror. The man staring back wasn't the man I remembered. He looked older. Not just in years, but in weight, the kind of weight you carry inside your chest. But beneath the lines, the sunken cheeks, the gray stubble, I saw something else. Steel, not rage, not bitterness, but resolve, the part of me that survived. That afternoon, I started sorting through what was left behind. Janet had left dozens of things at the house, clothes, books, personal trinkets. I boxed them all. Every item felt like another chapter closed. I didn't burn anything. I wasn't trying to erase the past. I was simply done letting it live, rent-free in my space. The community center offered me a part-time role mentoring young men in trades. I accepted. I needed the structure, the purpose. One of the boys, Jordan, was 18. Bright, quiet, but guarded. Over time, he opened up. One day, he asked me if I believed people could really change. I told him the truth. People change. But sometimes it's not growth, it's decay. You have to learn the difference. He nodded, wrote it down, said he'd think on it. Helping those boys healed something in me. Every story I listened to, every skill I passed on, it made me feel less invisible. But the past wasn't done with me yet. 2 months after sentencing, I received a letter. Handwritten. No return address. Just one word on the envelope. Sorry. Inside, 3 pages. It was from Janet. She said she wrote it from prison, that Kyle had promised her everything, that she thought she was in love, that she didn't expect it to go as far as it did, that she missed me, that she would always love me. I read it once, then again. Then I put it in a drawer. Not out of anger, but because some wounds don't need tending. They need distance. A few days later, I spoke at a local seminar for fraud victims. I didn't use names, I didn't make it personal, but I ended with this. Sometimes the person closest to you isn't who you think they are, but the person you become afterward, that's someone worth knowing. After the talk, a woman approached me. Her name was Evelyn. She was in her 50s, warm smile, kind eyes. She said my story reminded her of her own. She'd lost her husband to betrayal years earlier. We talked, then we kept talking. Coffee, then walks, then laughter. There was no rush, no pressure. Just two people, broken once, learning how to be whole again. And one night, as we watched the sunset over the lake, Evelyn asked me if I'd ever forgiven Janet. I thought for a moment, then said, I don't know, but I stopped letting her live in my mind, and that's enough for now. Max barked, chasing a squirrel. Evelyn laughed, and for the first time in a long time, I laughed too. Months passed, seasons changed, but I stayed where I was, in that quiet house, slowly putting myself back together. Evelyn became a more regular part of my life. We were careful, gentle with one another. We didn't speak of the past unless it came up naturally, and when it did, we didn't flinch. Her scars met mine with mutual respect. Still, there were moments when the past came roaring back uninvited. One night, while organizing my garage, I found an old safe hidden beneath a workbench I rarely used. I hadn't opened it in years. The code was easy enough, our old anniversary. Inside were tax records, copies of old IDs, even an outdated will. But buried at the bottom was something I hadn't seen before, a sealed envelope with my name written in Janet's handwriting. Inside, receipts, dozens of them. Flights, hotels, cash withdrawals, dates matched to weekends when she told me she was visiting her sister. Some went back nearly 5 years. 5 years. That wasn't a mistake. That was a lifestyle. I sat on the cold garage floor for what felt like hours, flipping through her hidden ledger of betrayal. I thought I had already faced everything. But this was another level. She hadn't just cheated and conspired. She had lived a double life for years, while kissing me goodnight and telling me she loved me. I didn't cry, but I didn't sleep that night either. Instead, I made copies of everything, and then I called the district attorney. Turns out Janet's trial had barely scratched the surface. Kyle's confession led them to more cases, but this trail of deceit opened a whole new avenue: financial fraud, cross-border money laundering, possibly even conspiracy to commit more serious crimes. The DA was stunned. He asked if I would be willing to testify again if needed. I agreed. But this time I wasn't doing it for revenge. I was doing it for closure. Evelyn supported me every step of the way. She attended hearings when they reopened the investigation. She listened when I ranted. She stayed silent when I needed space. And one day, she left a note on my pillow. What they broke doesn't define what you still can build. That note is framed on my desk now. As the investigation deepened, more names came out. Kyle had worked with a ring. Janet wasn't just a partner, she was a recruiter. The betrayal was worse than personal. It was criminal on a massive scale. Her sentence was extended. Kyle's, too. I didn't go to the courtroom for that one. I didn't need to. Because this time, justice wasn't about being seen. It was about being done. Max and I moved to a smaller place by the water. Quieter, cozier, more mine. Evelyn came with me. Not permanently, but often enough that her toothbrush lived in the bathroom and her coat had a place by the door. We built a new bench for the porch together, drank wine watching storms, held hands in silence when words weren't enough. And one day, I asked her if she wanted to stay. She didn't answer with words. She just unpacked her suitcase. The first morning after Evelyn moved in, I woke up before the sun. For a moment, I thought it was all a dream, but then I felt the warmth of her hand over mine, the quiet rhythm of her breathing. It was real. I made coffee. She joined me at the porch, both of us wrapped in the silence of early morning, watching the fog roll off the water. Nothing needed to be said. That's what I loved most. No pretense, no performance. Just being. Over the following weeks, we built something gentle. Routines, rituals, memories in the making. I fixed the fence. She painted the sunroom. We argued once, over something small, and then laughed at how silly it was. Real life, finally. But ghosts don't leave easily. One day, I received a call from a detective I'd worked with during the second investigation. "There's something you should know," he said. "One of Kyle's old associates turned up, and he had more documents, bank accounts, offshore ones, some tied to your name." I froze. Turns out, Janet had opened accounts in my name, washed money through them, likely planning to make me look complicit if things ever went south. The betrayal had layers I hadn't even imagined. I spent the next few weeks with lawyers and financial advisors cleaning up the mess. They managed to clear my name completely, but the damage to my sense of trust resurfaced. I found myself checking receipts twice, locking doors more than usual, watching Evelyn's phone when it lit up. She noticed. One evening, she sat me down. "You're not wrong to be cautious," she said, "but don't let her keep living through your doubt." She was right. We decided to take a short trip, just a few days on the coast, a reset. We hiked, ate too much seafood, and watched sunsets. It didn't erase the past, but it reminded me what life could feel like without its weight pressing down. Back home, I returned to the woodworking shop. Built a bench with hidden compartments, a joke to myself, one last nod to secrets, but now on my terms. One rainy afternoon, I opened a new journal. First page. This is not a story of what she did. This is a story of what I survived. I started writing again, not to publish, just to document, for my sons, for myself. In the spring, I planted new trees in the backyard. 2 oaks, symbolic maybe, one for the life I lost, one for the one I'm building. Evelyn helped, and afterward we stood in the soft earth, muddy boots and all, looking at the future in sapling form. That night, we danced in the kitchen. No music, just the rhythm of second chances. Summer crept in quietly, stretching golden hours across the porch and casting long shadows from the oaks we planted. By now, life with Evelyn felt natural, like she'd always been a part of this story. But even peace has its weight. It presses differently than pain, but it's heavy all the same. One evening, I found a letter in the mailbox. No return address, but the handwriting was familiar, Janet's. Inside was a single page. She wrote about time passing slowly, about regret. She didn't ask for forgiveness, just said she wanted me to know that she had finally accepted everything. She'd lost her appeal. Her release wouldn't come soon, maybe never. She hoped I was happy. I showed the letter to Evelyn. She read it in silence and handed it back. "Closure doesn't always come in courtrooms," she said. I didn't write back, but I didn't burn it either. I placed it in the box with the others, a collection of proof that I survived. Days blurred together in the best way. I joined a local community garden. Evelyn started a small book club. We hosted barbecues, laughed with new neighbors, and built a rhythm I had only dreamed about during those cold, silent nights years before. Then, out of nowhere, I received a call from my youngest son, Jordan. "Dad, Mom wrote to me." My stomach dropped. "She wants to talk. Said she's different now." I paused, then asked, "What do you want to do?" He sighed. "I don't know. I hated her for so long, but she's still my mother." I told him what I wish someone had told me years ago. "You don't owe her more pain, but you don't owe her your peace either. You get to choose." He met her. Once, in a monitored room, said she cried, that she didn't talk much, that she just apologized. When he returned, he hugged me harder than he had in years. "I'm proud of you, Dad," he said. "You didn't just survive her. You outgrew her." That hit me in a way I wasn't ready for. That night, Evelyn and I sat on the porch. Max lay at our feet, snoring. "I never asked," she said gently. "Would you have done anything differently?" I thought for a long time. "No," I said finally. "Not even the pain. It brought me here, to this moment, to you." She smiled, and as the porch light flicked on, casting a glow over the steps, I realized something. It wasn't the betrayal that defined my life. It was the way I rebuilt it. Autumn settled in with its cool mornings and golden sunsets. The lake out back reflected a sky brushed in fire. Life became a rhythm of small joys. Evelyn's laughter in the kitchen, cinnamon bread, bacon, Max barking at distant ducks. I had changed. Not in ways you could see, but in how I carried myself, in how I trusted, in how I forgave, not her, but myself. One Sunday morning, I opened the journal I had started a year ago, titled, "This is not a story of what she did. This is a story of what I survived." I flipped to the final page and wrote, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I chose to become after." That's when I knew the story was complete. I printed the journal, one copy, gave it to each of my sons. They read it over time. When they finished, Jordan cried. Patrick hugged me. I didn't need praise, just understanding. They gave it fully. That winter, Evelyn and I traveled. New England, then Colorado. A train through the mountains. We didn't talk about the past, just new things, future plans, garden ideas, maybe another dog. One night, in a snowy cabin, she said, "You rebuilt something unbreakable." And I realized she wasn't talking about the house. I wasn't the man who'd been betrayed. I was the man who endured, who rebuilt, who learned to love again, not despite it all, but because I refused to be ruined. Back home, I hosted our first holiday. Patrick brought his girlfriend. Jordan helped me grill. Evelyn set the table. At one point, I caught myself smiling. Not forced, real. I looked around the table and realized, this is peace. It's not loud, not dramatic. It grows quietly. Then, one day, it's everywhere. Later that night, Evelyn and I sat on the porch. Max at our feet, stars sharp above. She leaned on my shoulder. "Do you think you'll write again?" she asked. "Maybe," I said, "but I don't need to finish another story to know this one finally has an ending." She smiled. So did I.